Welcome the rare gems. It is far better to be alone than to be in bad company. George Washington. Loneliness hits differently when you're built like a Sigma female. It's not just about being alone, it's about knowing deep down that most people will never truly understand you. You walk through life with a mind that sees too much, a heart that feels too deeply but refuses to show it, and a spirit that refuses to settle for shallow connections. It's not that you can't fit in, it's that you won't force yourself to. Most people crave belonging. They need validation, approval, and the comfort of the crowd. But you've always felt like an outlier, even when surrounded by others. You don't chase social acceptance, and that makes people uncomfortable. They call you distant, cold, or unapproachable. But the truth is, they just don't know what to do with someone who doesn't need them. This path isn't easy. There will be nights when the silence feels heavier than usual, days when you wonder if you were meant to exist on the edges of the world. But don't mistake solitude for weakness. Your loneliness isn't a flaw. It's proof that you refuse to water yourself down just to fit in. You see the world for what it is, and that's a rare gift. Embrace it, strengthen it, and never forget, only those who stand alone can truly see how far they've come. Today we will dive deep into Sigma female life and her experiences. Let's get started, the rare gems. Number 1. A deep awareness that no one is really paying attention. There's a cruel irony in being a strong, independent woman. People admire you, but they don't truly see you. The loneliest Sigma female knows this better than anyone. She moves through life with quiet resilience, handling her struggles in silence, never making a fuss. To the outside world, she's got it all together. She's self-sufficient, composed, and unfazed. But beneath that exterior is a truth no one seems to recognize. No one is really paying attention. People love the idea of her. They admire her independence, her ability to handle life without constantly leaning on others. But admiration is not the same as care. While they praise her strength, no one stops to ask what it costs. No one asks if she's tired, if she's overwhelmed, or if she just wants someone to sit with her, not because they need something, but simply because they want to be there. She could disappear for a while, step back, go silent, detach, and the world would carry on as if nothing happened. Most wouldn't even notice. It's not that she expects people to rescue her. She doesn't believe in playing the victim. But what stings is the realization that the effort she puts into others is rarely reciprocated. She listens intently, supports without hesitation, and understands people on a level they don't even understand themselves. Yet when the roles are reversed, there's an emptiness, a gap where connection should be. This is why she learns over time to stop expecting anyone to truly see her. She sharpens her detachment, not out of bitterness, but out of self-preservation. If no one is paying attention, why waste energy trying to be noticed? Still, there's a quiet power in this awareness. She doesn't beg for recognition. She doesn't seek validation. She knows that, in the end, her strength is hers alone, and while the world may not be paying attention, she is, and that is enough. Number 2. The pain of outgrowing people. So fast that no one can keep up. Growth is supposed to be a good thing, right? That's what everyone says, until they realize it comes with a cost. The loneliest Sigma female knows this all too well. She's not the same person she was a year ago, 6 months ago, even last week. Her mind is always shifting, her perspectives expanding, her standards rising. But as she evolves, something painful happens. The people around her don't. At first, she tries to hold on. She convinces herself that maybe she can slow down, that maybe the friendships she once cherished can still fit into the person she's becoming. But soon, the conversations feel empty. The things they care about seem trivial. The connection that once felt effortless now feels like a chore. It's not that she thinks she's better than them. It's that she's moving at a speed they can't match. While they cling to old habits, outdated mindsets, and familiar comfort zones, she's already 3 steps ahead, questioning, learning, breaking patterns, and reinventing herself. And with every step forward, the distance between her and them grows wider. This is where the loneliness sets in. Not because she doesn't want relationships, but because most people aren't built for the kind of transformation she craves. They want predictability, She wants evolution. They want comfort. She wants truth. And when those differences become too obvious to ignore, she's forced to make a choice. Stay small for the sake of companionship, or keep growing and face the solitude that comes with it. She chooses growth. Every time. And while it hurts to leave people behind, she knows what hurts more. Staying in spaces that no longer feed her soul. But here's the thing about outgrowing people. Eventually, she finds others on her level. Not many, not often. But the rare ones who can keep up? They're worth every moment of solitude she endured to find them. Number 3. Attracting the wrong people, pushing away the right ones. There's something about her presence that pulls people in. Maybe it's her quiet confidence, the way she moves through life without needing constant validation. Maybe it's the fact that she doesn't try to impress anyone, which makes her even more intriguing. But this magnetism is both a gift and a curse. Because while she attracts attention, it's often from the wrong people, the manipulators, the energy leeches, the ones who see her as a challenge to conquer rather than a person to understand. They mistake her silence for weakness, assuming they can mold her into what they want. They see her independence and think, here's someone strong enough to handle my baggage. She becomes their emotional dumping ground, their therapist, their steady rock in a storm they created. And at first she might not mind. She's naturally observant, good at seeing what people need. But over time she realizes these relationships are one-sided. She's the giver, the fixer, the listener. They take and take. But when she finally needs support, they vanish. Then there are the right ones. The people who could truly connect with her, who see her depth and admire her strength without wanting to drain it. But by the time they get close enough, they run into her walls. And those walls, they weren't built overnight. They were constructed brick by brick through years of dealing with the wrong people. She's been burned before, so she keeps her guard up, testing, waiting, making sure they won't disappoint her like the rest. Unfortunately, not everyone is patient enough to wait. Some misinterpret her distance as indifference. Others assume she doesn't care. They walk away, not realizing she was simply protecting herself. And so, the cycle continues, pushing away the ones who could love her while being pursued by those who never truly will. Until one day, she decides to break the pattern, to stop entertaining those who drain her, to recognize when someone genuine appears. Because if she doesn't, loneliness will become her only safe place. Number 4. Knowing that even her loneliness has layers. Loneliness isn't just one thing for her. It's layers stacked on top of each other, each one heavier than the last. Most people assume loneliness is just about being alone, about having no one to call, no plans on a Friday night. But that's surface level. She knows a deeper kind, the kind that lingers even in a crowded room, the kind that doesn't go away just because she's surrounded by people. She's been in friendships, relationships, even family gatherings where she played the role she was expected to, smiling, nodding, contributing just enough to seem engaged. But inside, she felt miles away. Because it's not about proximity, it's about connection. And most people don't know how to meet her on that level. They talk about things that don't matter. They focus on the surface. Meanwhile, her mind is elsewhere, craving depth, craving something real. But the deepest loneliness isn't just about being misunderstood. It's about knowing, without a doubt, that even if she laid everything out, her thoughts, her struggles, the way her mind works, most people still wouldn't get it. She could explain herself perfectly, find the right words, the right examples, and still, they'd only grasp the edges of who she is. That's the kind of loneliness that sinks into the bones. So she stops trying, stops expecting to be fully understood. It's not bitterness, it's acceptance. Some things are meant to be kept within. Some thoughts are too complex, too raw, too personal to be shared with just anyone. And that's where the loneliest Sigma female finds her peace. Not in forcing connections that don't fit, not in trying to make others see what they never will, but in embracing the fact that some parts of her are meant to stay hers alone. Number 5. Accepting that her loneliness is both a curse and a gift. Loneliness is a double-edged sword. The loneliest Sigma female knows this better than anyone. It weighs on her, follows her like a shadow, and on some days it feels unbearable. The silence, the lack of deep connections, the realization that no one truly understands her. It's heavy. But at the same time, she knows this solitude has shaped her into the woman she is. Without it, she wouldn't have sharpened her mind the way she has. She wouldn't have learned how to think for herself, free from the noise of other people's opinions. Loneliness forced her inward, made her dissect her own thoughts, made her ask herself the hard questions that most people avoid. She had no distractions, no constant validation from others, just her and the truth. And that truth made her unshakable. She doesn't seek approval anymore. She doesn't need permission to be who she is. While others chase acceptance, bending themselves to fit into places they don't belong, she walks her own path, untouched by the need to conform. There's power in that, a power most people will never understand. But the hardest part, knowing that this strength came at a cost. There's a certain kind of pain in realizing that no one will ever fully see her the way she sees herself, that even in a room full of people she will always feel slightly apart. She has accepted it, but acceptance doesn't mean it doesn't sting. Still, if given the choice, would she trade her solitude for a life of shallow connections? Would she give up her clarity just to feel a little less alone? No, she knows better. Her loneliness is hers alone, both a curse and a gift, and in the end she wouldn't trade it for anything. Number 6. Waking up one day, realizing she's become ice cold. One day she wakes up and realizes she doesn't feel things the way she used to. The sharp sting of disappointment, dull now. The warmth of someone's affection barely reaches her. The fear of losing people, gone. She stares at herself in the mirror, and for the first time she wonders if she's become ice cold. It wasn't always like this. She used to care deeply. She used to hope, to trust, to believe in the promises people made. But after years of being let down, of watching people leave, of realizing how rare genuine connection is, something inside her just shut off. Not all at once, but piece by piece. A slow erosion of emotion, so gradual she didn't even notice it happening. Now, when someone pulls away, she doesn't chase. When someone lies, she doesn't get angry. She just files it away as another confirmation of what she already knew. When someone claims to care, she watches their actions instead of believing their words. She's learned that most people are temporary, that affection is often conditional, and that expecting warmth in a world that thrives on self-interest is a fool's game. But is she truly cold or just adapted? Because in a way, this detachment is its own form of survival. It keeps her from getting played, keeps her from breaking every time someone proves they were never who they pretended to be. She doesn't feel the highs, but she also doesn't drown in the lows. And yet, a small part of her wonders, has she lost something in the process? Has she built a wall so high that even the right people can't get through? Maybe. But at this point it doesn't matter. She's not the girl who used to beg for love, for understanding, for people to stay. Now if they stay, they stay. If they go, they go. And either way, she remains unmoved. Number 7. The loneliness of never finding a true equal. She has met countless people, some intelligent, some kind, some fascinating in their own way. But sooner or later the cracks begin to show, the neediness disguised as affection, the insecurity masked as confidence, the small talk that never turns into anything deeper. And once she sees it, she knows the cycle is about to repeat itself. At first she tries. She gives people a chance, hoping maybe this time someone will truly match her, someone who doesn't drain her, who doesn't ask her to shrink herself, who doesn't mistake her solitude for sadness. But it never lasts. Sooner or later they want too much, take too much, or reveal a hollowness she cannot fill. It's exhausting, this endless search for a true equal, a mind that sharp, a soul that's steady, a presence that doesn't suffocate. She's not asking for perfection. She's not asking for someone who mirrors her every thought. She just wants someone who understands what it means to be self-sufficient, who doesn't need constant validation, who can hold their own without expecting her to carry them. But those people, they are rare, almost impossible to find. And so, the deeper she grows, the lonelier she becomes. Because the more she evolves, the fewer people she can relate to. The more she sharpens her mind, the more distant she feels from the rest of the world. She has learned not to settle, not to pretend she's satisfied with surface-level connections. She has made peace with her solitude because at this point, she'd rather be alone than with someone who drains her. And maybe, just maybe, there is someone out there who thinks like she does, who moves through the world with the same quiet intensity. But until then, she walks alone. Not because she wants to, but because there is simply no other choice. Number 8. Knowing she's too much and too little at the same time. She's been told she's too much, too intense, too analytical, too independent. People meet her and are drawn in, intrigued by her depth, her quiet strength, the way she seems to exist outside the usual social scripts. But then, reality sets in. They realize she won't water herself down to make them comfortable. She won't fake excitement over small talk or pretend to need them just to soothe their ego. And so she becomes too much for them. At the same time, she's also too little, too emotionally distant for those who crave constant connection, too self-sufficient for those who want to feel needed, too reserved for people who thrive on external validation. She doesn't flood people with attention, doesn't chase, doesn't perform affection in ways that make them feel special. And so she becomes not enough for them. It's a paradox she's learned to live with. Always too much and too little, depending on who you ask. Always leaving people confused, intrigued, or eventually disappointed. She doesn't fit neatly into any category. She's not the nurturing, ever-available presence that some seek. Nor is she the detached, emotionless enigma that others assume she is. She feels deeply, but expresses it selectively. She cares profoundly but refuses to prove it in conventional ways. And that's where the loneliness creeps in. She watches people find their matches, others who complement them effortlessly, who don't make them feel like they have to choose between being too much or too little. She wonders what it's like to be just right in someone's eyes. But at the end of the day, she refuses to change. She knows the right people will recognize her for what she is, not too much, not too little, but exactly as she was meant to be. And until they come along, she remains in her own space, unapologetically herself, even if it means walking alone. Number 9. The silent rage of being used as a last resort. She's not the first call when people want to grab a drink, go on a spontaneous trip, or share a meaningless joke. She's not the friend they think of when they just want to have fun. But the second life gets complicated, when their world is falling apart, when they need deep advice, when they need someone to listen without judgment. Suddenly, they remember her. They show up with their broken hearts, their crises, their existential dilemmas. They spill their souls, lean on her wisdom, take what they need and then disappear again, off to celebrate their victories with people who require nothing from them. And she? She's left in the shadows, used but never truly seen. It builds inside her, a quiet, simmering rage, not because she resents helping, but because she sees the pattern. She realizes she's not a true part of their lives, just a tool they pull out when things get hard. She wonders if anyone even notices her when she's not playing the role of the healer, the guide, the problem solver. She doesn't ask for much. She doesn't expect constant attention or validation. But she wishes, just once, that someone would invite her before they needed something. That someone would want her company, not for her depth, but simply because they enjoy her presence. But people rarely think of the strong, the insightful, the ones who seem self-sufficient. They assume she doesn't need invitations, that she's above wanting simple, easy companionship. And so, she stays in her own world, growing colder each time someone remembers her only when their world is crumbling. Eventually, she stops answering, not out of cruelty but out of exhaustion, because she's tired of being a last resort, tired of being valuable but never valued. Number 10. A strange comfort in her own darkness. Most people run from their darkness. They drown it out with noise, with distractions, with shallow connections that keep them from ever being alone with their thoughts. But not her. She has spent years sitting with her loneliness, feeling its weight, studying its shape, and understanding its voice. At first, it was unbearable. The silence, the aching absence of warmth, the feeling that no one truly sees her. But over time, she stopped fighting it. She let the loneliness in, let it wrap around her, let it whisper its cruel truths. And then something strange happened. She stopped being afraid of it. Most people don't understand how she can be so comfortable in her solitude, why she doesn't crave constant validation or rush to fill the empty spaces with meaningless noise. But that's because they don't realize what she knows. Darkness isn't the enemy. It's a mirror. It forces her to see herself as she really is, without pretense, without illusions, without the comfort of distractions. And in that mirror she has found strength. She has learned to navigate the sharp edges of her own mind, to sit with emotions that others would do anything to escape. She has discovered a kind of self-reliance that makes her unshakable. Does it get lonely? Of course. There are nights when the silence is too loud, when the whispers of doubt creep in. But she has learned to handle them, to listen, to analyze, and then to move forward. The world fears solitude because it forces confrontation with the self, but she has already had that battle, and she has won. Now her darkness is no longer a prison, it's a sanctuary. It doesn't control her, it belongs to her. And that's why, no matter what life throws her way, she remains untouchable. Because when you've made peace with your demons, there's nothing left to fear. Number 11. Struggling to let people in because she sees through their masks. She wishes she could just take people at face value, trust their words, believe in their sincerity, let herself sink into easy, effortless connections. But she can't. She sees too much. It's not a gift, it's a burden. She catches the micro-expressions, the fleeting hesitations, the subtle shifts in tone that betray someone's true emotions. She hears the insecurity hidden beneath bravado, the quiet plea for validation behind casual compliments, the unspoken neediness in seemingly self-sufficient people. She sees it all, and it exhausts her because she doesn't fake things. She won't pretend not to notice when someone is wearing a mask. And she refuses to play along with the silent games people rely on to navigate social interactions. She won't give forced reassurance, won't feed someone's ego just to make them feel secure, won't participate in the unspoken dance of hiding and performing. And that makes connection nearly impossible. Most people don't want to be seen that deeply. They want the version of themselves they present to be accepted without question. They want surface-level interactions, the comfort of predictable social scripts, but she can't provide that. She sees who they really are, and in doing so, she unsettles them, so they pull away. Or worse, they try to hide harder, pretending even more, hoping she won't notice. But she always does. And so she remains on the outside, knowing that even when she does meet someone who intrigues her, the odds of them being comfortable with her level of perception are slim. She wants depth, honesty, and authenticity. But most people aren't ready for that. So she keeps her distance. Not because she doesn't crave connection, but because she refuses to settle for anything less than real. Final words. Loneliness is the tax you pay for seeing the world differently. The loneliest Sigma female isn't lost. She's simply walking a path most people can't follow. She doesn't fear solitude because she understands it. She doesn't crave approval because she knows her worth. And while the world may never fully get her, that's not her burden to carry. She wasn't built for shallow connections, for meaningless small talk, for friendships held together by convenience. She was built for depth, for truth, for something real. And that kind of existence comes at a cost. People will misunderstand her, underestimate her, and at times forget her. But none of that defines her. What defines her is her resilience, the way she keeps going even when no one is watching, the way she refuses to betray herself just to fit in, the way she has turned loneliness into power, silence into wisdom, and solitude into an unshakable force. So, to the Sigma female who feels unseen, your path is yours alone, and that's what makes it extraordinary. The world may not always acknowledge you, but it needs you, because you are proof that strength isn't loud, confidence isn't performative, and real power doesn't seek validation. Keep walking, keep evolving, keep being you. Thank you for watching The Rare Gems, and God bless you.